And it looks like we are live, everyone.
Woo!
Yeah. Woohoo. Hey, I'd like to welcome everyone to episode 11 of Around the Ecomiverse. Today we have Jordan Riz, Danny DeBull, Daniel Lee, and Crypto Rain joining us to talk about all things VeVe and Ecomi. How are you guys all doing?
Well, man, I'm excited to talk. Missed you guys.
Missed you
I
too.
Good to see
I
you all.
love these. Yeah, I love these weekly chats, and I'm super pumped to get Daniel Lee on because you're a pretty busy guy and you're hard to pin down, man.
This,
Yeah. I'm very happy to be on. So thank you for having me.
this is his second episode, I think. He's been on.
Mhm.
Awesome, and you're the only one with that VeVe logo, so you're the OG representing, man. I love that.
Represent.
Yeah,
I'm
man, I need one of
very proud of
those, man.
I'm just
Yeah.
gonna paint my wall, try to make it look like a 3D thing, like I have it or something, you know. I don't even have the what was his name, Jimmy Lee Lingo, right? Like handed out some epic VeVe kind of plaques like that, or like that just looked absolutely incredible. So I
Oh,
got to be
yeah.
on his good side or something, right? Oh, you have that too, huh? Is that what you're gonna show us?
This guy's got everything. Dan Lee's got it all.
Really? I think you have one of these too.
I'm out of here, man.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, well, let's get things jump started here. We have lots to talk about today, and a lot of this I have to give a shout out to Chad NFT Pirates. He kind of had this live stream with Alex and Ryan, right? Kind of talking about things and asking a lot of questions, and actually brought up a lot of talking points that I think it's important to discuss and our thoughts on that and the impacts that they're going to have. So the first one, there was talk about marketing, right? And we've seen some of the marketing start to take place that Alex has been working on. We have like Corey in those videos with the comics. When you type in Google, digital collectibles, we see VeVe pop up there. But also they kind of talked about celebrity marketing, right, and influencer marketing. And we know that in the early days, we saw like Logan Paul. Apparently, someone had paid Logan Paul to talk about VeVe and Ecomi. And I remember when I was first coming in and seeing Logan Paul talk about that and be like, "Oh man, that's crazy, right, Logan Paul?" But then we saw kind of what happened with Logan Paul and one of his projects, Crypto Zoo, I think it was called. And so I want to open it up with a question to you as to what do you think of the marketing so far? Has it been effective? Is it targeting the right people? And then Alex had mentioned that from a pure usability standpoint, there needs to be some additional implementations before they go hard on influencer or celebrity marketing. So there is that potential there. If we were to have celebrity marketing or influencing, who would you want it to be from?
I'll just jump in and say I'd like Alex Becker because he's fairly influential in the crypto space already, and he likes metaverse projects and gaming tokens. And I think once VeVe has the VeVeverse out, that pretty much will be a gaming token, right? Would you guys count VeVeverse as a game?
Not yet, but perspective, down the line possibly. But I wouldn't count it as like, gaming yet.
Okay.
Right.
I
think
metaverse.
Yeah, I think it's a start, right? The fact that they've, the Lambo drop was marketed in CoinMarketCap and other publications is a good start. I think they need to do more along those lines, targeting, crypto publications and the crypto crowd. Kay brought up a really great point a couple weeks back, talking about how, onboarding people through OMI and using OMI as a conduit to the VeVe app is a strategy that they should employ. And I really agree with that. In terms of bringing in like influencers, I think they need to be careful, right? Especially now in the climate that we're in. We saw what happened with Logan Paul. I would stay away from people like Logan Paul who are you don't want the interpretation to be like we're just trying to pump this token. I think the goal should be we're trying to build awareness for this token. And, people, knowledgeable people in the crypto sphere, like a Coin Bureau, people like that. I'm not a really big fan of Cryptos R Us, but I know he does. I know he's mentioned OMI in the past. They've linked up with him. even someone like him who just has access to the wider audience and that are like, firmly rooted in crypto and can give background information.
What if that sponsorship looks more like some of the big people who collected Pokemon and talked about it, right? Like, so Logan Paul somewhat tarnished his name in the crypto space and with people related to crypto. But what about like Andre Jick or Graham Stephan? And they just did like a disclosed thing. So, and they talked about VeVe and the collectibles and not the OMI token so much. That way it just goes into bringing in collectors into the space. And by virtue of bringing in collectors in the space, it'll bring in investors too.
So targeting fandoms?
Yes. Because I think if it becomes a huge thing for collecting, kind of like collecting Pokemon cards did, the rest happens automatically.
Yeah, I'm kind of a fan of the more long-term marketing strategy, and I'm kind of torn here because on one hand, if we had some short-term marketing like an influencer coming in, pumping that token up, we would probably all do very well, and that's what we're definitely here for. But long-term, I'm not even sure we're ready for influencer marketing. When you look at what we did before with some of the people you mentioned, Logan Paul, those weren't even team members, actual team members working for the company at the time to actually do that. This was ex-members who did that for their own nefarious means. Now it worked because it pumped the token like crazy and made a lot of millionaires. But long term, I'm not even sure if that's what we would want to do. That's something we would want to investigate down the line. I mean, Reese has talked about Cryptos Are Us, and I think that's a great platform for sure. But I'm more interested from a business standpoint, like these natural organic partnerships from like the movies and games. That didn't really do, didn't seem like we got a lot of headway with that. But I liked getting an NFT for watching this movie. Like I watched Jurassic Park, I think it was Dominion, or I forgot which movie that was. But I watched that with Kyle Wilson specifically because we wanted an NFT. Now that's not very popular because NFTs aren't really super mainstream yet. But once that gets to a critical mass where that is a little bit more popular, there's a reason to have an NFT. You can potentially use it in your metaverse space. Then I think that's going to help the licensors. It's going to help VeVe. It's going to help the overall community. So long term, I think what we really need is long-term marketing. And we really need to help other projects as well. We need to get the word out that NFTs is not some niche thing that's associated with a scam, but it's actually something that's going to enter in mainstream very quickly here.
Are you muted?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I like that perspective. I do think it's a longer term play, right? With these IPs, they're not going away. They said that they have a 10-year deal with Marvel, right? And so it is longer term. And I do think that there needs to be some time for the masses to truly understand digital collectibles or NFTs. Right now, NFTs for the masses, when I talk to someone about an NFT, it's either that they don't know what it is or they think that it's destroying the environment, right? I mean, those are two things. And when I say digital collectible, that clicks a little bit better and they don't understand that that's an NFT. But there needs to be an understanding because I was talking with Pyromaniac, right, just in the DMs and saying, like, how many new accounts did we see VeVe get during the marketing for these movies, like the Jurassic Park posters, the Thor posters? How effective was that? And how much money did it cost them? And maybe it didn't cost them anything because of the partnerships. VeVe said, hey, we'll build out this free poster if you just talk about it or offer that as a thing. I don't know what it looks like behind the scenes. That would be interesting to see. But longer term, as more and more people start to understand and get exposed to digital collecting, then those type of movie partnerships, getting that poster stuff make a lot more sense in the onboarding. But I do like kind of targeting in the short term more crypto native influencers that can talk about that are well respected in this space. So it'll be interesting to see. But you guys didn't. Well, I guess you guys kind of did cover. I was thinking some sort of sensational celebrity to list, but it makes more sense. All the celebrities.
Kanye West.
You were talking.
Yeah, I don't know.
LeBron James. Let's get LeBron James on there talking about VeVe. Okay, so another thing that I thought was interesting in the interview was they talked about KYC and onboarding and how difficult it is to onboard new users when the KYC is right up front? And I understand that too. When I've downloaded some apps before, really understanding what it was, and it was asking for personal information, I was like, yeah, no, like I don't know who this company is. Why are they collecting my information? I don't understand it. And so there's that potential that they're losing a lot of people right at that step, right, of the KYC. So the team has made the decision to push back that KYC until you want to sell a collectible, right? You can put money in, you can participate in drops. And my question is, for both of you, what do you think the pros versus the cons? Or do the pros outweigh the cons of this stance? Because let's say that I'm a botter, and before I had to pay for a synthetic KYC account. Maybe it's $5, maybe it's $10, but now because the KYC process isn't until I want to sell a collectible. And they implement the queue system. I generate 10,000 accounts, and I enter those 10,000 accounts into the queue system, and some of them drop, and then if I hit a big one, then I only do that for the bigger drops. Then the ones that hit those big drops, I KYC those accounts. And how many of those bot accounts actually start entering that queue system, compared to how many people will get onboarded because they don't have the KYC right at first? What are your thoughts?
I think at the moment we could use the users.
Bring the bots back.
Bring the bots back.
What Jordan is saying.
But it was a scarcity, right? When every single drop's just sold out instantly. We all went crazy trying to buy, get a drop as soon as you could. So it really helped the scarcity. I guess the problem would be with those bot people, they'd still have to sell to somebody. So, we still need more users for that anyway. So I think at the moment, bots aren't really a problem. I think, they could be in the future. I think, is it any time you use a secondary market, you need KYC, I think, as well. So not just selling, but also buying on the secondary. So all it is that you can buy from the store without KYC. I think that's what it said. You guys know?
Oh yeah, I'm not sure. Do you guys know for sure?
No, I'm not sure. And I don't know if there's the queue system, is there a way for them to like sort through botters in the queue system? And, I'm not really up on like the technical aspects of all that and what their capabilities are.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. They do that with some of the
Right,
other
to like weed out like bots in that process.
That might be part of our what's it called? Drop list system.
The wait list, yeah.
Yeah.
10,000 signed in under one IP address.
Yeah, maybe, right? Like, yeah. But like they have a way to bifurcate IP addresses, right? Like, I mean, we're seeing bot accounts land even back in the day in like January of 21. And I guess here's the thing though, when you say the new users, if I'm a new user and I come in and I'm in the queue system and I'm not getting it because there's so many bot accounts that are also in the queue system that I'm still not getting it even when I participate, I'm going to leave even without having to do the KYC, right? So that's kind of my whole thought behind that question is how do they address that? And hopefully there are going to be some very stringent and strong bot protections in that queue system where they can identify some of that. So you do have new users coming in and hitting that, because we also got to remember that it's only going to be about 33% of each drop that's going to be allocated to that, right? Because then you're going to have the OMI and then you're going to have the MCP, which is also divided. So there's a smaller subset of people, of new users who are going to be able to compete in that.
We know that means that you can only have a maximum of 33% bots, right? Like that would sort of max out. So at least the people who are really into it, that have the OUP and they have the MCP going there, they will get the drops a lot more often. So I think that becomes a lot more fair.
Do you think that that's going to reward the people who are already here though? And will that system allow for new users to want to stay and get those MCP points to be able to compete?
I think it'll help a lot. Danny, you look like you want to say something?
Yeah, I think it's a balancing act, KYC balancing act, and you need it on the one hand to keep, bots out and to make sure that real people and collectors, investors, whatever you want to call them, are getting the drops. But at the same time, you don't want it to be a barrier to entry. right? And it's really annoying to tell people to come check this out, or they're advertising this or promoting it now. And people have to, that immediately, when they have to go through that KYC process, it's a deterrent. So I do like the idea of them, prolonging that for people and allowing them to get in, go for drops, see what the experience is like, play with some of the collectibles, get that bug, catch that bug of collecting in the app, because the KYC thing kills it for a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you guys know the purpose of the queue system? What are the real world advantages to that? Because I remember in the early days in like 2021, the context of the queue system was that it would be more efficient from a infrastructure perspective. It's less demanding to have everyone try to press a button. Is that the only real purpose besides the bots and then maybe some efficiency?
I think it levels the playing field, so people who are further away from wherever everything, and have less chance. I know people complain a lot who live in different countries, saying that they have no chance to get the drop and they don't land anything in months.
Yeah, that's valid.
Yeah, Jordan, because you're in Australia, right?
Yes.
Have you ever been able to land a highly desired drop ever?
Yeah. Not since they had a lot of users. Now it's a bit less, obviously.
Let's see how fast your fingers are, Jordan. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
You should be able to land a drop with fingers like
it
that.
was a problem here because I would stay up till 2 a.m. in the morning. Right, I'd stay up to 2 a.m. in the morning. I'd just be watching whatever show. Just when the Ultraman drop was going, I'd watch all the Ultraman before we had the Ultraman drop. So I was learning about it, and that's why I was really into the Ultraman. And then the crash would. The app would crash, or there'd be too many users, and I wouldn't get things. And then I learned about that. Do you guys remember that? What was that hack that you could use? So you could change the time.
Yeah, clock gate.
Right? Yeah. I started doing that. I started getting all the drops, but that was cheating. But yeah, in Australia, I noticed that a lot of people, a lot of my friends as well, couldn't land drops here. So obviously the ping timer for I think there's AWS servers, but was just a little bit too long. I think I looked on the world chart, and the ping for Australia was the second or third worst for AWS, and that was a couple of years ago. I checked that, so I don't know if they've improved it.
Do you guys remember when Dan said that? Dan from the team, he said, "Oh, I have a friend in Australia. He got a few drops a couple times, so there's no ping."
Yeah, I remember that. It was NFT Hero.
Was it?
Yeah. NFC Hero saying that he's in Australia and he hit a lot of the bigger drops. So that's interesting.
Can you tell us where? I'm in Victoria. So.
Yeah, maybe he's at the top of Australia, so he's the closest to those AWS servers, wherever they are. But yeah, Daniel, to answer your question, right? I mean, and Danny kind of talked about it, but there are a lot of people complaining that they're just never hitting the drop. So at least they're the advantage is not speed of internet, right? I'm just getting into that queue, and so I have as good of a chance as anyone else percentage-wise of getting on that drop. Unless, and it would be interesting if you have to sign into your account or no, never mind. I was thinking of the Palm NFT drops, right? Where basically people can open up tons of different browsers, or not even just browsers, but it has to be Internet Explorers, right? And then they can have 12 going to try to enter that queue system. If something like that, if there's some sort of play there that botters can use. But anyways, interesting. And I appreciate that NFC Hero letting us know. That's really interesting to see. But okay, well, so moving on, I want to talk about utility. So back in the day, right, in July of 2021 when Bored Apes dropped the Bored Ape Kennel Club for the holders, right? And that was massive. And what happened is, I think the floor on those were around $3,000 to $4,000 for people. So it was just this airdrop of money to anyone who wanted to sell those, and people wanted to get into that ecosystem they could. And it was really revolutionary at the time of adding that additional utility. And we've seen VeVe do some utility drops, but what type of utility? So Alex, when he was talking to NFT Pirates, right, he said that they're in talks with the IP about different types of utility. What type of utility would you like to see from these IPs? What's out there? What could we see? Because Alex said to keep our eyes peeled for something utility-wise that's coming down.
I think it'd be fun to see some really cool drops, right? So they've done some extra drops, but some really cool ones would make a difference, or kind of like what Bored Ape Yacht Club did, like special parties and stuff, right? So if you have a Todd McFarlane Batman, you get in a special party at Designer Con or something, right? That they put on that night. And you could always have someone else do it. The challenge comes through. VeVe makes money every time those change hands. So that's the correlation, right? So if it goes way up in value because it's really, really desirable, well, they make a lot of money every time those change hands. That's how Bored Ape Yacht Club was able to afford the really expensive parties, and having major celebrities come rap for the private audience, was because they make 5% or something every time those change hands. So those are the two utility ideas that I see, is like they've done drops, but like highly desirable surprise ones that nobody's planning on just randomly, right? So there's this principle in psychology about inconsistent behavior reinforces the behavior more, or inconsistent rewards reinforces the behavior more. So if they just randomly, oh, by the way, this is dropping tomorrow, snapshot was taken yesterday, and then people see that drop and it's like the freaking coolest thing ever.
Yeah. And then it rewards,
that would be big.
It rewards those real holders, right? Like people who were holding the Series 1 Batmans or whatever got rewarded with the opportunity to purchase the blue drops, right? But, it was authentic and organic and rewarded, true holders, as opposed to making an announcement and then everyone rushes to, buy something and they dump it immediately after. So, I like the idea also of special drops and, access. What part of the problem is having those licenses is, it's a gift and a curse, right? Because we love the IP and we love, we love all those characters, but at the same time, we have to we're at their mercy in a sense.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
I was thinking something they could do for utility. I mean, we know they have the LOL surprise. And the problem with this at the moment really would be the age demographic. But if you could get kids into VeVe, the LOL surprise, they can make kids toys that are super, super interactable. They're basically like VeVe NFTs that would be almost like their own little app. So I don't know if you guys have seen, little kids sometimes have these different apps on the mobiles, and they have like interactive toys that can do all these different things. They can talk to you, you can record your voice, and the little bunny rabbit, whatever, said it back to you, and all these really fun things. It keeps the kids engaged for like an hour at a time. So if they did that to some VeVe NFTs and they sold it under LOL Surprise, that would be some real life utility. And maybe you can even bring those toys into the VeVeverse. That'd be even more fun.
Yeah, when I think of utility, I first like to think of what Disney's first idea of utility was with the Golden Moments, where I remember it was like a promotional deal. You got Disney Plus. Like that's kind of cool, but really that's kind of limited. It's very one-dimensional thinking. It's really promotional in nature. And then when you listen to what the community was wanting or expecting from like holding a Walt, they have really high aspirations. Maybe you can get into special access into, Disney World, Disneyland. We know that at this point, that's not likely going to happen at all. And I think we could take a page from other projects that I'm not really too familiar with BatCals, but I like the idea of parties. But, a party is a very limited thing. It's going to happen once or twice. You're not buying something for just a party every single year, but, you have other benefits too. Like you can actually have some creative decision-making in terms of what a comic does in the future in terms of titling or what the plot changes there. I like that a lot, but ultimately I think the utility we truly need is VeVeverse based. If I buy a Lamborghini, I expect to drive it. That's the core utility of buying a toy car, is you can drive a car. And I think you can extend that analogy or logic to like planes or houses or sculptures. that needs to be kind of the core utility, and that's why I think the VeVeverse is so important, because we need to be able to play with these things in some environment besides just really selling it and having some really one-dimensional thinking in terms of our utility currently. But that's what I think is we need the bare core utility that we think of when we buy a lightsaber. Being able to use it and play with it and things like that.
Yeah, and to piggyback or off of what Dan was saying, I think also the thing about parties is that it's kind of like divisive, right? Because then it breaks up the community in a way, and we become more tribal, right? So only people with a Todd or a partner statue. Whereas when you're talking about like Bored Apes, it's like it's inclusive, right? It forms opposed to segregating community.
That's an interesting point. Daniel, I love that point about the VeVeverse, right? One of the things that I really look forward to owning that secret rare Spider-Man, right, is if there is that capability in the VeVeverse, and only those who have the secret rare Spider-Man can use that as your skin for the avatar, right? Because that adds an additional social flex to it that it's just like, hey, I own this, and you can tell I own that. And maybe like as you hover over my avatar, right, it shows my mint number or something like that as well, to show like as a flex that I own that. And so there's so much that you can do once you get into the VeVeverse and additional utility. And to Danny DeBull's point about announcing it after the fact, I think that, look, I know it's a legal thing with Disney, right? Because DC doesn't seem to care. It was DC who did the retroactive utility, right, for those holders. Whereas I think that Disney's like, oh, we got to pre-announce it and stuff. But if you look at the price action, look at the price action between the Todd and the Rizzo for the people who got that, either the ability to buy it on the drop or were airdropped it, versus like the Janet Pym or like of this latest Marvel Mighty, she was at like $50 until the snapshot. Now she's like $13, right? Like dropped 75% in value. You don't see that big of a drop between like the blue Todd and the blue Rizzo, because those people are holding on, right? Who got that, they were rewarded for that, as opposed to the price speculation and things. So I do like that retroactive, because it truly does reward the holders. And if they want to flip that, like that's their reward for holding it, right? And that was the same concept with Bored Ape Yacht Club. For you, if you hold this and it's unannounced, all of a sudden it's just like, we've already taken the snapshot, and those who had this were rewarded. Then people are like, geez, what do I want to hold in case there is something like that? So it does also incentivize more people potentially buying stuff and holding for that. So I wanted to address this question here. Blockchain Comics asked here. So if VeVe doesn't deliver by the end of the month, which is Q1 with the MCP or the VeVeverse, will this change anyone's narrative about the project?
I'd be very, very disappointed and upset, but that's already happened with this project. So,
yeah, I think the narrative has already been changed a bit, right, from where we were, at least where I was a year ago, and the confidence that I had in the team to get things done. I don't have that same level of confidence. So now it's a matter of them kind of like regaining that trust and confidence. I don't necessarily my expectations are low for this month, right? So I don't really expect them to get these things done. But, a few months out, if we still haven't seen these things, then I think the fundamentals change for me, because that's after we've got the change in the team, right? They've onboarded Mitch and Nestor and all these new devs. And so if we're still not seeing results of these new team members in a few months, then that would further erode my confidence.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. I actually don't expect them to deliver by the end of the quarter. I guess it'd be March 31st. I would have expected some kind of teasing, positive teasing. Like, hey, it's about to come. It's letter V. What could it be? I don't know, just something fun like that. But since they've been so quiet about it, I just don't expect it to come. But I think if we don't have it by the end of this year, and there's no explanation for it, I think that'd be troubling. You'd have to really wonder why. We were supposed to get this in 2021, And we really have never had an answer about why we didn't receive that. Was they said 2021, 2022, 2023 now, and we still don't, if we don't have anything, it would have some questions in my mind for sure. Granted, I did go see the demo. I saw something. So, progress is being made. But I would like to know why, and why they've been so quiet about it. That's kind of the more concerning part for me, not the delay necessarily.
Do you think that's part of their sandbagging expectations? Is that an optimistic thought?
Do I think they're doing that because
intentionally? Are they intentionally not saying anything in order to sandbag expectations?
No, I think if they were going to do that, they wouldn't have set some really kind of aggressive timeline of Q1. I mean, we saw that together. Like that was going to be like 6-8 months away, right? Something like that. So I think if they're going to sandbag, they would say like coming soon, 2020 or 2023, 2024. I mean, that's what I would expect. But to have a tight time frame like that, I just think that that's what they believed, and then they're not hitting it again potentially.
Yeah, for me, I think if I don't see some iteration of MCP and the VeVeverse, even just like the bigger showroom, right, or your own house, by the end of Q2, I'm gonna pull back on a lot of my investment in VeVe until I see something. Yeah, I've got to. Now I've still been stacking and buying OMI at these prices. I'm still buying NFTs and raising my sets for that. But if I don't see that, yeah, I mean, to that point, like what's happening behind the scenes that we're not aware of that they can't. And like I really like Mitch. I'm really bullish on Mitch and everything that he's accomplishing. I really appreciate the communication that we're seeing. He's reaching out as people have had these login problems, right? He's like answering on Twitter and saying, "Hey, we're working on this." Like that's so helpful to know that the team is looking at those comments, that they're aware of that and they're reaching out. So I'm really excited about that. I understand that it takes some time to move a large ship and that he's got to change kind of the culture and deliver that cadence, right, with the devs. And that takes some time, but he has set some timelines now, and we are seeing some updates to the app. I love those little updates of communication as to, hey, this new app update, this is what's included in it. But yeah, if I don't see something by the end of Q2, as they've even added more devs and things, I'm gonna hold off, and I'm gonna be telling people too, like the people I talk with on a daily basis, on the YouTube channel, on Twitter, being like, there are some concerns here as to like what's happening. But end of Q1, no, I still am giving Mitch some more time regarding that. And I did want to show. So Hello K had a couple interesting comments just about NFTs, and he brings up a good point here, right? Like NFT utility that can be achieved, even if it's not an NFT. Like there's so much that can happen, and there is token gating, and I understand that Danny says that there can be some tribalism that occurs there, but it also can that happens anyways, right? Some people are just all Marvel people, or they just really like Thor, and I do think that will develop even bigger fan bases of certain collectibles and really build on that. So token gating, I think, is important, but yeah, there's a lot that they're missing with the technology of NFTs and what they can do with that.
Yeah, I do think it would. I agree with Kay. It would be a missed opportunity to capitalize on the technology and what these, the whole premise of, what can be done in the space.
So following along the same lines here of the MCP and the VeVeverse and potential delays. Here's another question from Jordan Riz. Does the current VeVe and OMI delays remind you of other projects years ago that made promises but took forever to deliver? And so, Crypto Rain, I know that you've been in this space for a lot longer than most of us, if not all of us. And so what are your thoughts?
Well, so yes, this reminds me of tech companies in general and crypto companies. Like this kind of stuff happens. Cardano was an early thing that I was following, and I waited till it came down in the bear market, and then it sank further and further than where I started buying at. So I went through much the same process as we're doing with Ecomi and OMI. Now, one of the setbacks, it really dawned on me what's really been holding Ecomi back is they didn't have a proper dev team themselves. And every project makes a decision whether to outsource, because if you outsource to, say, a development studio, they can get it done faster and possibly for cheaper, and you don't have long-term overhead. So a lot of projects, they'll outsource in the early days, and that's exactly what Ecomi did. But the problem with it is when they get everything done that they've agreed to, they move on and take other projects, and you don't necessarily have access to them. And so all these delays of things not getting done, it comes through trying to approach it that way. And so then they had to shift gears and create their own in-house dev team so that they can have some consistency of developers who are already familiar with everything. And so things can get fixed on an ongoing basis and then improve much better. So they made that transition. I wish they had made that transition sooner. That transition has happened mostly within the last 6 months. And so a lot of their devs are now up to speed. So I think we will get faster progression now, but I think still these things are going to take longer than people expect. And you will have some people lose hope and faith and fall off. And then, maybe prices go down even more. And then later on, prices go up as things happen. And then the people who left the space regret having left the space. And that cycle happens over and over and over again in the crypto space and in a lot of things.
So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I really hope they actually just completely surprise us. I hope there's no lead up at all, no teasing at all, and then just drop VeVe on our face at like mid-March or end of March or something. I think it's possible. I think, as everyone said, it's an outsourced project. The team that has been delayed is not actually working on it, so it's quite possible.
I was thinking, Rain, you often talk about what happened with Axie Infinity. And I remember you watching that first interview, and it was just these guys in like a basement or something, and you were like, what are these guys doing? I like the idea. It sounds really really cool, but at the same time, like who are these guys, right? And then they got some backing, and it took several years though, right? Before there was really this build out and a lot of things came together. And that's kind of like, I have a longer term outlook on this. I mean, I Halfbit says that he looked at some of the VeVe source code and it was spaghetti code. Look, I think that this happens when a company is growing and they're putting things together as at their first starting out, is that they were probably getting devs, hiring devs all over the place and putting them together and trying to create this code, and it probably turned into spaghetti code. But as they've grown now and they're becoming more and more professional and they've got more income coming in, I think that that's one of the things that Mitch is doing, is going back in and being like, we got to fix a lot of this stuff. It's going to take some time to really build this out so that we don't have these glitches. We don't have these log out issues all the time, right? And it's going to take some time. But I'm looking at what the moves they're continuing to make. And that's what I am more bullish on as I continue to see these app updates. But it is important to recognize where they were and what was happening. But I do want to give them credit and say, like, I do think that they are fixing some of this stuff, but it does take time.
Right. So not only do they have to, build out this new stuff, they have to retroactively fix all that old stuff. Right. Just compounds the time.
Yep. 100%. Okay. So new topic here. Alex had talked about that there are some elements of burning and crafting coming, and he told us to stay tuned. We know that David Yu in previous AMAs has talked about, like, he gave an example of, maybe you have to burn 50 commons and like 25 rares, and then you'll get some special item, and I think initially it's probably going to be as like a testing ground. It'll be like VeVe specific, right? So it'll be something that VeVe does. It's non-IP related at first. And then they can go to the IPs and say, hey, look what happened when this was burned. What are the price points now of the the IP. So let's say that I burn a comic and they're saying, okay, well, what's the price point now? And how much are these trading at? And what's your income at? On top of that, like how many people actually did that? Are they talking about that? And just kind of going back and being able to show them. But what type of burning scenarios could you see? How would that impact the collectibles? Do you think that all of the IPs will sign off on their collectibles being burned? And then also the crafting things. Do any of you guys have experience with HRO and some of the crafting? Like, I don't understand some of the crafting that potentially could happen there.
I was thinking it might be that they do more like the small artist sort of IP, because that would be a lot easier for them to get approved to start this crafting. I was thinking of the labbits, but that's more breeding than crafting and burning. You don't want to burn labbits; it's really quite bad. Yeah, can you guys think of any of the small artist IPs that they could probably do some burning? Maybe
it's probably easier to do the smaller artists versus the big licensors. I actually watched a Gale video. It's a tutorial about hero burning, and it actually looks really cool. There's like a point economy, and you take a collectible and you do something with it, but it makes it like a better, probably more valuable collectible in the end. And I really like that idea. I think it's very complicated. But if you get a licensor to sign off on it, like the Marvel stones are just something I think about, where you get them all, you can somehow burn that and get like an infinity gauntlet. I think that's a great opportunity. And it really uses, hopefully if they go this route, they use the master collector points to actually fuel this economy to be able to do this. I think this could really blow up the value of collectibles just in general, with all the burning and giving more of a purpose for the master collector program. I was actually really bearish on master collector points in general, because it sounded so much like the OMI token utility. I feel like it's just a different side of the OMI token utility program, right? With the different points, but actually being able to use that exclusively potentially to craft, I think that's a huge unexplored opportunity if they went in that direction. There's a lot of creativity there. I'm really excited to see what they do with that.
Yeah, and that makes use of the technology, right? And that kind of like gamifies it. It makes it a lot more fun and opens up the possibilities within the app. So definitely, for sure. But, I wonder just how long it's going to take them, if it's taking them so long to get MCP out and all these things out, right? It's going to take, people have to have a really long-term time horizon for all these things, right? It's exciting to think about, but.
So I haven't followed how HRO does crafting, but I have looked at NBA Top Shots and UFC Strike, and basically they'll say something like, in order to get a pack that might contain this new thing, you have to select from these different players, and any card of theirs at the common level you have to burn, and then they'll have like 3 cards at the rare level in order to get a pack for this special drop, right? And so that's how they're using burning and crafting. And Topps did the similar thing with their baseball cards. So probably they're thinking something along the lines of that. But is that going to work across their whole thing? Is Disney going to like it if a bunch of their things are getting burned to get some other moment? So I'm sure they have something in mind. Like you guys guess, that it's probably along the smaller artists, because the approval process would be easier.
Maybe Marvel would do it with their comics. I mean, there are so many of them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, initially, if you think about Marvel comics #1, right? There's 60,000 of those. Now, it'd be interesting to see how many people actually want to burn, their Marvel comics #1, and maybe some whales are out there that are like, look, I don't mind burning 100 of these bad boys because it's going to decrease the supply. It'll be interesting to see. I think comics makes a little bit more sense maybe than the collectibles, but I was thinking about like Matt Gondek even with his weapons rack, and if it's like, okay, if you burned a set or something, right, you get like XYZ. He's doing, and I really like Matt Gondek. I didn't know anything about him until he came on, but that failure of control drop that he did, it just really hit me. And so I followed his art, and he's doing this, I think it's 100 paintings, small little paintings together. And I'm wondering if it's going to create like a larger painting as he does that, but like maybe getting another one of his pieces or a more popular piece. I would definitely do something like that, right? So I do like that independent artist, because people who follow those independent artists, if you can get a rarer piece because of that, I do think that those people, those fans of those artists, would definitely be willing to do that. And what that does is it reduces the supply of something, say like the weapons rack, right? And so you would think that the price probably goes up at that point for those who want to still hold on to that. So yeah, interesting stuff. I do think that creates, and what if you got points, right? MCP points or something for burning as well, to create a little bit more gamification on that. There's a lot of untapped utility that they could implement here, which gets me excited, right? As I think about the things that could still come, that VeVe could still implement, and how big that could be. There's a lot coming down the road there.
I think they've really killed it with the burning and stuff on like NFL All Day, NBA Top Shots, and the UFC Strike. If I can share my screen here, I'm going to show you how many of these. Somebody put in here that only one per day is getting burned from HRO. So they haven't really got people to catch on. But check out this Patrick Mahomes moment. This is from the first season, right? The first series. There's only 1,200 total. Yet look at this number. 135 moments burned. That's substantial. So let's see if it'll take me back to the marketplace. It shows you actually on each of these how many are burned, right? So Isaiah Pacheco, there's 7,000 of these. 155 of them are burned. Yeah, so like even some of these rares have a number of them that are burned. Not this one, but Patrick Mahomes, looking at some of his. I have a bunch of these moments, and there's a lot more of these. So 8,500, but 134 moments are burned. They did something and got 10% of this supply burned. And they start at their lowest ask is $300 on this.
How much?
$300.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's a season one of Patrick Mahomes, right? So
one of the things that they've done here with these moments is they've gamified it, right? Where if you burn certain things or you hold certain collectibles or moments, and you get these, like it's like 100-yard like dash or something, right? And once you complete that 100 yards, you get airdropped like another exclusive, a rare moment. And so yeah, this is another one of those untapped avenues that VeVe has, really to gamify the system, to increase the collectability or people interacting in the app, right? And checking and being like, okay, what week, like this week, what is there to burn, and what's that moment that can be created or that I can get? I really want this, and so I'm going to go out to the market and buy this because I don't have it. Yeah, there's so much there. And look, to Kay's point, right? Like, so he talks about as I'm transitioning from all of the things that VeVe can do, and yet we're seeing HRO already doing some of these things, right? Mm-hmm. VeVe makes a lot more revenue than HRO and Quid combined, yet they have less features released. I think that boils down to the fact that when VeVe first started, again, maybe it was that spaghetti code, right? And so like building on top of that becomes harder and harder and harder without going back and fixing those underlying issues to make it possible to even do that. And so, yeah, they do have a lot of revenue. It would be really interesting. I was talking to Javier, and when he was talking, he made a post about VeVe's revenue and how much they're actually making, and kind of trying to reverse engineer some of the information that we have to break down like what VeVe has actually made, like net, right? Not gross gem sales, but what are they actually bringing in that they can then use to pay their devs, to do other things. And it's probably not as much as we would think. So it'd be interesting to get the financials on both HRO and VeVe, right? And to be able to compare. Until we have those, it's difficult for me to necessarily criticize VeVe to a point. I think that there could be some criticism there and saying, hey, but when you're first and you've built out some things, then you get competitors coming in and doing new innovative things, then you're reacting, but you're a bigger entity, and it's a little bit harder to do that. The smaller entities are a lot more agile and can move quicker. So that's something to take into consideration as well. Case
yeah, I mean, to that point, I mean, they've done about 350 million in revenue, right? So even if they netted a third of that, it's probably enough to hire like some really top quality people. And my thinking is that they just didn't do that quick enough. And they, I don't know, like you said, we don't know what's going on under the hood. But I think that, they are generating enough revenue to build out a top-notch team, or even to sell off. I mean, they have this company that's generating all this revenue, and they could have sold off a portion of it in the last bull run when there was all this money flowing around to get the money that they need to really build out their project. Because if you look at any tech company, oh, here he is.
Look at this guy.
Woo!
I can't hear you, Reese.
No idea.
We can't hear you.
I can't hear you.
But we can see you.
Yeah, one moment. Okay. Is he gonna come back? Oh, AirPods. Look at this. That's so funny. Oh, that's awesome.
Woo!
Hold on. Now I got to tweet this out, man.
A little choppy.
Okay, hang on. I'll be back.
All right,
Yeah, going on that topic while Reese is doing his thing there,
Oh,
you got to also look at it. It's not revenue that those gem sales represent. Really, it's liabilities, right? Because they're not necessarily making, for every dollar you spend, they're not necessarily making a dollar. Those are liabilities that are owed to other people. And when you actually factor that in and you look at the large numbers and also the large costs, 30% in potential app store fees, 40 to 60, maybe even more to licensors, possible paying out a bunch of people, it probably boils down to very little money relative to the that number of gem sales they bring in. And I think that could possibly explain everything that they've gone through. But that's just my opinion.
That's a good point that I really hadn't considered.
Hello, friends.
There we go. Okay.
Technology at its finest. How are you?
Good.
Good.
How are you doing?
Doing all right. Doing all right. Just a bit of Monday-itis, to be honest. It's just one of those days. But no, outside of that, doing well. Just want to throw a quick shout out to the LA Fire Department, lads. Really appreciate the merch at Decon last year.
So where are you, Reese?
Canada.
Canada right now. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
just yep. Just
And are you not living in Australia anymore?
No. I haven't. Well, I haven't lived in Australia probably for 5 years, I guess. Yeah, since I'm not permanently anyway. I used to run a couple of businesses and work full time and all those things, but I think I've been in Canada for about 18 months now.
Awesome.
On this one, yeah, it was like I used to live here maybe 8-9 years ago, and it was actually just the easiest place to get to during COVID, like to get out of Australia. I mean, you're in Australia, right, Jordan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So you went through the worst of the lockdowns.
Oh, it was awful. Yeah.
Yeah, it was terrible. So when this option came up for me, I was like, I'm out. See you later, Australia.
Nice. That's cool.
But anyway, what's going on, Omiverse fan?
Well, not much. I was going to address Australia real quick. My wife and I, we did several years ago. We went on this kind of round the world trip to make up for like the terrible honeymoon we had. It was not very good. So we did. 5 years later, we went out and did one, and we visited Australia, and incredible country. But when I went from New Zealand to Australia, and basically New Zealand, like you could walk into their forest and like lay down on the ground and fall asleep and be, like completely fine. But I feel like everything in Australia was engineered to kill you. Like
it was engineered to survive, right?
That's why Australians are so tough.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I will not lay down in the jungle here. No way.
That's what I'm saying, right? You lay down in the jungle and it's like you got like 3 of the top 10 most poisonous snakes in the world are in Australia.
And
You got
spiders.
these massive hunter spiders or whatever, huntsman spiders, and like snakes coming out of toilets. I can't. I was like, Oh my gosh, man! I don't know how you guys are still
That's why
alive.
Reese went to Canada.
That's exactly right. Yeah, but then you come here and there's like bears and cougars and things that I'm actually scared of, not snakes and spiders and all of that. So,
Exactly.
yeah, there's always something that tries to kill you. You got to watch out for the drop bears more than anything in Australia. They're crazy little critters.
Yeah, watch out for the moose too. Moose kill more people than bears do every year.
That's right.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
So
It's
don't
like-
go up and try to pet it. If it's a male, they're dangerous.
Is it like a stampede or just like one moose kills a human?
Yeah, they'll kill you, right? So they're very territorial. So think of a bull with a different type of horns, and those things weigh as much as a bull. But people think, it's a moose. They've seen it on cartoons. It's friendly. Oh no, they're not
They've seen
friendly.
it on cartoons.
Yeah.
Don't miss the moose. We got it.
That's it. Sorry, guys. I just obviously popped in here. Don't mean to interrupt the conversation.
Oh yeah, no, we'd love to add you to the conversation, right? As for whatever viewpoint that you can give. I have a serious question for you, related to, and maybe you know this and maybe you don't. I don't know. As Reese, as you talk to exchanges, I mean, there were some questions around, does utility have to happen nowadays for exchanges to consider the token? And you talked about not necessarily. Here's another one for you. Could lawsuits in any way, shape, or form impact an exchange's decision whether or not to list a token?
Yeah. And it's not necessarily impacting whether they list, but it will impact, how conservative they are when they're making those decisions, right? It's because obviously exchanges are their own business and they need to protect themselves. I mean, even in the last week, we've seen Binance US now called into question for some of the tokens they've listed, right? And they are very stringent and strenuous in the way that they assess their listings as well. And I'm sure you guys may have caught it, all this talk about DeFi projects getting Wells notices now and all of this kind of stuff. So it really does go back to the same point that I was making a few weeks ago, that utility isn't 100% required to be listed, but it definitely gives them a better case to be listing tokens and gives them more security in that decision. And it's much easier to then obviously funnel people in that direction if there's a verified use case for the token. Yeah.
My next question would be, what's a verified use case?
Well, for us, I would say only to NFT or something that you can see an actual use for. That's what I would consider that. Obviously, like a utility went live this week with VeVe, one of our partners. But I wouldn't consider that strong enough to then justify listing somewhere, right? That's just kind of a bit of an added bonus for token holders. So I think when it pertains to our product and our ecosystem, you obviously want to see the token integrated into that product.
So if you can see the words OMI inside the VeVe app, that means it's go time?
So you can see that now on the web app, right?
Yeah, but not you can't interact with it trading NFTs for it or anything yet.
Yeah, you can't do that yet. Yeah. So once we get close to that, I think it'll be easier to make the case. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know you can't talk too much about listings and everything. So just blink twice if we're getting Binance.
Hey,
Blink.
Do we get 2 blinks? No blinks.
you blinked so many times that I don't know. I don't know what that means.
I think there's something
Morse
behind.
code.
Hey, so you got blockchain comics here, and maybe obviously, David, you dropped this bomb of this awesome Binance AMA, New Zealand Binance NFT AMA, right? And everyone's just and then we've heard nothing since. And maybe you can't talk about it, but I would love to know, is there a time frame on when this is happening, or is that still hush hush? And are they just talking about NFTs? Because that's what it seemed like to me, right? That this is going to be Binance is going to be talking about NFTs, because isn't Binance also doing? They're going to have their own marketplace that they're launching. Correct me if I'm wrong there. And
is it not live now? I remember Binance did
maybe it is. My bad.
Didn't they do a Tokidoki drop a year ago?
Oh, you know what? You're right. They did. You're right. They did. And I remember people talking about that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I didn't follow it.
Yeah, neither did I, frankly. So to the point of the AMA, I haven't seen it, obviously. It's definitely going to focus on the collectibles and licensed collectibles. That's what a lot of people in this, at least in this frame of the market, are looking for information on, right? Because still to this day, there's not many licenses or brands in this space that aren't on VeVe, right? Like obviously we've got HRO and independent brands and things like that. So I think that that's where a lot of the conversation and the narrative will be in the next 12 to 18 months as people really look to that mainstream adoption and the onboarding of the normies, right, as we call them. So yeah, I fully expect it to be focused on VeVe more heavily than the OMI token. Now, as to the actual AMA, I think it's a pre-record. We mentioned this in the Discord last week. So I think it's probably a one-on-one with the New Zealand representative, the Binance NZ guy. And then I assume they'll post it across their resources whenever it's happened or whenever it's ready. So I actually have no idea when we should expect it, but I'm assuming sometime in the next few weeks, because it doesn't really make sense to announce it and then wait 6 months to see it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, has there been like internal talk about, onboarding more people into VeVe, like using OMI as a conduit? Because, I think a lot of people came here through the OMI token, right? Like I myself found, I got into the token first, then I got into the VeVe collectibles. So is that like a strategy that's going to be employed, more heavily moving forward?
Yeah. So one of the main roles that Mitch is undertaking is reorganizing the whole business into vertical structures, I guess, for lack of better terms. So, instead of having a web team and a mobile team or however it was, we'll have an onboarding team, and you have a commerce team and a loyalty and retention team, right? And that's kind of where your OUP, MCP, those things fall under. So part of that onboarding strategy, other than making sure that the user experience is easy, right? Because even today, especially with KYC, it's not a good user experience, right? And we've obviously talked about moving that further down the process to try and ease that up. But that will all form part of the onboarding strategy, right? It's not just attracting or trying to bring in the traditional collectors. There's obviously this huge qualified audience already, right, in the NFT space who understand these things. Maybe not so much the license side of things, but they understand the digital collectible side of things. So, yeah, I mean, it would be a huge, in my opinion, would be a huge misstep on our part to just ignore that part of the industry. And as you say, I think the OMI token really is the conduit to that, outside of obviously the brands and the speculation on the collectible side. But at the moment, what we all call the traditional NFT space, it's still very grassroots. Still very underground. There's a few artists and a few projects that have made it, but even that, a lot of them have hit their limits of what they can really give their community at the moment without creating more NFTs, right? And I think that most brands and most companies are starting to go through that process where they're like, okay, well, not just how can we bring in new streams of revenue without having to sell collectibles, right? And that's a thing for us too, because it is very drop dependent at the moment, right? As you guys are fully aware. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of strategy that goes into that, but at the same time, I mean, everybody's still learning in this process, right? Ourselves included. And to your point earlier, I tuned in just before I jumped on about HRO having these features that are already live and those kind of things. I think Dr. Stuff, you nailed it when you said, we were first and we really pioneered and innovated this kind of drop model and this system and those kind of things. But you're right, when it comes to new features and implementing different types of features, aside from the licensor challenges, you do have to go back and re-optimize everything you've created to now change the system to be something else or to accommodate something else, right? And a lot of those features, I think, will run through the web app, just because of, one, how app stores operate, and two, because the ease of actually developing that stuff is a bit easier and a bit more intuitive.
So we got this question here, and I want to say something first, only because I'm very familiar. Like, so people want to know about, hey, what happened to CryptoPay? And I know that they're working on that again. And then payout. They're saying, hey, liquidity issues. Oh, and please don't say regulations. I'm just going to speak from the point of regulations are very serious and they're very onerous. They're very, very onerous. And just making sure that you have your I's dotted and your T's crossed it's very serious, because what can happen is the regulators can come in and they can shut the whole thing down, right? And then they're going to say, hey, you've got all of these things that you've got to fix before you can do it. Then we're going to test it before you can. And so one of the things, and this isn't just VeVe, but like other companies, when they're implementing that, whether you have like a money transmitter business or something, they are doing all of those checks and balances. And crypto is a hot topic for regulators right now. It's a very big deal. You're seeing, at least in the US, they're coming out like interagency policy statements on liquidity for banks, right? Like, and all of these issues that they've identified. And so regulators are taking an even deeper dive and a harder look at anything touching crypto regarding KYC, AML. So that's just from an overall perspective of regulation in the space. But Reese, do you want to address anything more related to this?
Yeah. I mean, all very valid points, right? And I've said this previously, but there's a very strong reason why we have been conservative on these things, and it's because we've expected this regulation to come for a long time, right? And that's why we have the KYC. Won't be surprised to see that become a thing for all other platforms if it's not already, right? As to pay in, pay out specifically, crypto pay-in is being beta tested now, right? I think there's 12,000 people in there at the moment, so we are approaching that point of critical mass, right? As per that article on VeVe Medium. If anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, there is an update article there, right, that talks about how we roll out features, talks about how we roll them out in batches, and that's sort of what we're actually targeting before we are comfortable opening a feature to everybody. So pay-in is fine. Payout, I think, came down to more of a security and fraud issue, right? Because there was a lot of people with trying to fudge their KYCs, and obviously there's less tracking that can be done if it's a crypto out sort of transaction, right? So I think that's where most of that focal point came from, and that's why that feature has been delayed, right? We need to implement better systems on our end to remain compliant, right? And to make sure that we don't run afoul of regulations. So it's not a liquidity thing, because it's actually a third-party service provider. It's more of a checks and balances thing.
All right, so we talked about this a little bit already. Any updates you can give us on whether MCP, because I know that Mitch rolled out, right, and they did some beta testing on MCP, and then they kind of scaled it back, and they're like, okay, now we've got to do these fixes before we then roll it out again. Do you think in a month, or what can you tell us about MCP and VeVeverse, right?
Yeah. So I guess kind of following on from the point I just made, we did roll out to a very small group of beta testers week before. And as you say, we found some bugs and some things that we needed to update, so we repealed that. Now, I think the next app update is due out in the next couple of days, right? Whenever the app stores approve it. I think it's submitted today or tomorrow, see how long it goes live. And once that's live, then we'll roll back out to bigger batches. Those issues have been resolved. So I think, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure we're rolling out to a few thousand in the first batch, and then probably again see how that goes. And if everything's working as expected, then same thing, we'll let in bigger and bigger batches over the next couple of weeks. But that is app store dependent. Okay, so just because the update goes out or we submit it, we still need the Apple overlords to approve our build before we can roll those things out. And I think the system's changed a little bit, right? Originally we had a calculate button in there. I think now it should just kind of happen. As users are whitelisted to that beta testing.
So I've already tweeted out that Reese has said that MCP in 2 days. So I'm really excited.
Everyone, right?
To everyone, for everyone. So I'm really, really pumped on that. Thank you so much.
And the wing thing too, the wing.
Yeah. It's still in my eye. So that's all happening. That's obviously our most immediate priority. And then the wait list, I think, is the next one. Now, as to VeVeverse, I actually don't know. I'll have to try and get an update on that. That's kind of been Dan's little baby, for lack of a better term, and he's holding it pretty close to his chest. So I think the expectation is that beta will be opening, very small beta, hopefully by the end of the month, because we all know I'll be crucified if it's not. But if it's not by the 31st of March, it won't be long after, because that's what we're targeting, as far as I'm aware. Don't kill the message.
It's good to hear.
Hey, I just want to clarify, because I think there's some confusion still. I believe that you've already addressed this, but there were two new lower tier exchanges that listed OMI. The question is, did they do it by themselves, or did okay.
Yeah, they were renegade listings. And great time to ask this question. Do any of you use those exchanges? Does anyone use VeVe? I've never heard of them personally.
No. I saw they had a decent amount of liquidity. It was like 100,000 daily volume, 100,000. Yeah.
Okay. That's on OMI, you mean? On the OMI pair?
Yeah, on OMI, on those random exchanges. So that's
Do you know?
that's like almost 10% of ours, I think.
It is, but there's no guarantee it's not wash trading either.
Yeah, probably.
So,
Probably
you know,
bots.
you have to be realistic about these things. If no one you know is using that exchange, it's probably unlikely that it's real volume.
Yeah.
You know, so take that with a grain of salt.
You know what was interesting though about those exchanges? They seemed to come after KuCoin had made a post and they were talking about like, hey, what tokens should we list or think about look into listing, right? And shout out to VeVe Viral and Denny DeBolt. Like there's several people that commented under there, right? I mean, it was the VeVe fam out in force.
Absolutely.
I mean, I scrolled down that and it was like the majority was people talking about OMI, and then you see these OMI, these exchanges list OMI, and that's the interesting thing, right? Is these exchanges they make fees off of those exchange, like when the tokens are sync, right? And so you see someone who has a large fan base or that community, and they're like, hey, we can make some money off this, and maybe like front run some of these large exchanges from doing it. People get used to it, they're onboarded here, then it gets listed on this other exchange, but then we can potentially get more users there. So there are some kind of like snowball effects that can happen there. So shout out to the VeVe fan. We're continuing to do that, right? And
100%. Yeah, I did see that actually, and I know that what you see as trending is kind of personalized to your profile, but OMI was trending on my Twitter feed that day, and I think the VeVe 500 the day after or something like that. So it does show the power of community there, and it really can make change. And above all else, everybody else that's looking at that feed now goes and looks into OMI, right? Because like, well, what's this token? What's going on here? Like, what am I missing about this kind of thing? So it's growing the awareness of the company. I think is the responsibility of everybody, because we're all here for the same reason.
Yeah, and there were a couple people who actually inquired and asked me what the token was, where they could buy it, and we do have such a strong community. But how do we build awareness outside of the community? Even something as simple like when you search up on CoinMarketCap, top metaverse tokens, top NFT tokens, all these things that I've never heard of, like that aren't even top 100, not even top 200 populate. But OMI doesn't show up, and I'm wondering why that is and how that could be changed, because that's something that's not like even about marketing. It's more about just making sure that it's built in to those systems and whatnot. How does something like that happen where OMI doesn't populate?
Because CoinMarketCap is a pain in the ass. That's how it happens. It's like I've submitted our information to them time and time again, and they keep coming back with we need to verify it, but they just never do. Right? That's why it's kind of down the ranks. They also have their own ranking system, right? So CoinGecko very simply is ranked by market cap. CoinMarketCap specifically takes market cap into account, but has to verify your token system and also takes into account liquidity, exchanges, I guess an overall trust score based on those as well, and that's how they throw you in the ranks there. So I guess we're in the queue for review. I sent them another message sort of a week and a half ago to see if that comes up, including, updating the metaverse, the game. I mean, OMI is a gaming token now as well with Tengoku. It's a metaverse token with the VeVeverse. And I guess, logically, all of these things will be easier to verify when those products are live too, right? And we can just say, go and use it.
Any updates on that game?
On the game, Tengoku? Yeah. I mean, it's been the gameplay has been in beta testing for a few weeks now. If anyone's interested, you can join the Discord and go and check it out.
It's really fun.
You've played it?
Oh, it looks really fun.
Yeah. I don't have a PC, but the game is designed to be played with an Xbox controller, and they're sort of adding new levels all the time. So go check it out if you haven't yet. The website is live, but I don't know that it's fully ready to go. So you can learn a bit more about it.
Do you know that OMI tokenomics work in the game?
Yeah, we design them. So we will release that information as we get closer to it.
Okay.
They're in the process of auditing and building the marketplace. Once it's live and we test it and audit it, that kind of thing, and we see if the system works, first and foremost, then we'll be able to share those details with people. But it is a system that we have designed to be exportable to other games, right? If we show the proof of concept here and it operates as we think, then it's a very easy thing to export. So I don't know if we'll give everybody all of the details, because then we're kind of just giving free tokenomic designs to competitors.
Yeah.
But the basic the basic premise, right? You kind of have incentives for money to come in or for people to transact in OMI or the in-game currency. You can buy new skins and weapons and all that kind of stuff to supplement your gameplay, get through the game quicker and all of that. And then there will be a cash out mechanism that you can swap, back into OMI tokens and withdraw from the app. Yeah.
Cool.
Speaking about the OMI token utility, can you provide us an update of kind of what's going on and maybe a new timeline, perhaps?
I can't give you a timeline because I've learned my lesson 1,001 times.
That was a trick, and you passed.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. No, look, as you know, MCP and waitlist are the next two, and then OMI to NFTs on the table. So that's kind of what we're aiming at. Originally, and I think in the roadmap we were going to design the spot wallet system first, and these kind of fundamental bits. But I think we all want the token in the app as soon as possible, and to be able to transact with it. It opens up a lot more doors for everybody, and fundamentally that the spot wallet system specifically was more about future proofing than it was an upfront necessity. So that's kind of what we're aiming at, over the next few months. In terms of team, no, we have an independent standalone team now to work on all the kind of blockchain integrations and all those kind of things. So that will be their responsibility. And I think we mentioned it in Discord last week, the OUP and MCP, we're kind of bringing back together now into one loyalty program, for lack of better term. I think I've heard you guys mention over the last few weeks, there's so many opportunities there in terms of using points for, like crafting and those kind of things. And there's some really amazing tie-ins that we can make between the token, how you supplement and grow your levels or your ranks and all those kind of things as well, so that you can use all those features in the app. So it's I'd love to share more about it, but it's not. I won't go as far as saying we've cemented all of that yet, and that's what's in the works at the moment.
I have one more question. Sorry, Dr. Stuff. When we get the VeVeverse, whenever it comes out, if it's this month or next month, do you think straight away we'll be able to buy accessories with OMI? Is that something you can share?
No. The first iteration of the VeVeverse is really going to be an extension of your showroom, right? So it'll be that home space you saw at DesignerCon. I think there's a lot of interactivity and things you can do there with your collectibles at that point, and including, I don't know if this will be phase one, right? Where the social interactions, like letting other people into your showrooms and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
No, it'll be more, those features are going to be more around the display and utility of your collectibles to begin. And then we will integrate the token, however we choose to do that later.
Cool.
Yeah. Are we going to burn? Sorry, Dr. Stuff, good question.
Yeah. So I just got this question up here. With the new iteration, and I believe that you've touched on this, so I think it'll be good just to solidify the answer again. But with that reserve and the vault wallets, right? If we're going to be burning straight from circulating supply, those kind of don't mean anything anymore. Is that correct?
Correct.
So will those eventually then just be sent to the burn wallet? Do we have a timeline on that, or can you give us a timeline? Or
end of the year at the earliest. Timeline on that. That system will just keep running though, right? And if by chance those tokens burn out of existence before we get there, then all the better to it. But otherwise, it's something we'll aim for then.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, but yeah, just for the record, those wallets are now effectively redundant, right? Then they're never coming into circulation. They don't serve a purpose. And to the point of CoinMarketCap earlier, they're actually making it way more difficult to verify our token system, right? Because it's quite unique in the way that we have designed things. That was an obvious design choice from the start to try and make the purchasing of crypto, easy for the mainstream. But now it's actually just become a burden. Yeah, now the system's changed.
Here's another interesting question. So any chance of collections, outside of VeVe, for example, like a Bored Ape Yacht Club or, like a 10,000 PFP project or any type of other NFT project, is there a possibility in the future of those coming onto the VeVe marketplace at some point?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, if we're looking at it purely from an IP standpoint or a branding standpoint, then I think if any of those brands make it to being, not household names necessarily, but big enough to justify putting alongside Disney or Marvel, then I think there's a possibility there. I think longer term, we'll probably see something like that integrated into more of the VeVeverse side of things, because that is designed to be more open and allow other NFTs in to be displayed. But I don't see why in the future we couldn't sort of capture some of that trading market share as well.
Love it. That's cool, and that makes more sense, right? To have that in the VeVeverse. So with that, would there be? I'm assuming there would be the potential for some of those projects that have like 3D metaverse ready type collectibles. Could they integrate into the VeVeverse as well? Like, could they partner with VeVe and be like, hey, like if you own this, you can tie in your wallet and also use your avatar or tie that in somehow as well?
Yeah, that's the intention, right? And initially, I think we're going to have some sort of approved content creator list, right? Or they have to submit their assets to us for approval if we have our own standalone approval team, just to make sure that it all looks good, because nobody wants giant penises floating around the VeVeverse. And we all know that's what we're going to get if we let anyone in. Right?
That is so true, man.
That's like, you got to have some common sense there. So yeah, I think there's going to be a gated experience to begin. But once we get into a bit of a cadence like that and bring in, we have some trusted sources for those things, or some sort of system, maybe to the point earlier, maybe you need MCP points to be able to mint or bring in collectibles, right? So then you're incentivizing people to actually participate in the ecosystem instead of just try to show off their wares, right? I think there's a lot of potential to utilize that kind of system to at least weed out some of the nefarious sort of activities that we'll see.
Before I get into more of the community questions, I feel like I've been pumping out these community questions. Jordan or Danny or Daniel Lee or Crypto Rain, do you guys have any questions for Reese, or we can keep going? And Reese, first of all, thank you, you freaking legend, for jumping on this stream. I'm super pumped. I really appreciate it.
No worries at all. Jordan is actually the one responsible for inviting me, but last week he gave me the wrong time.
Yeah, it's hard.
He blamed it on you, man.
I blamed it on you. He said,
It's like, yeah, 3:30.
I mean, I did send the video YouTube link. On YouTube, it says how many hours till it's out.
I just saw whatever it was.
It's a wash. We'll call it a wash.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, my bad.
No, that's all right. We made it.
I got a quick question. It's been kind of a rough year for everybody. Actually, past couple years, with the team and the community and kind of delays and things like that. Is there, in a very general way, can you tell us if there's anything we could be looking forward to in the next 2023, 2024, in terms of like surprises or things you think that the community would really like? In a very general way, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a surprise if I said what it was. Look, I think we're all in the same boat. We all understand that every feature we've kind of talked about and every exciting thing is pretty well still ahead of us, right? In terms of all these kind of the actual utilities and more the incentives in the app, right? A lot of people talk about like burning as a mechanism, right? But burning in the way that we do it right now, where it's like, oh, here's an oversupply and we just delete those or whatever. Like things like that affect the total supply, but they don't affect the demand. Right? They don't then incentivize people to go and collect those things. It's just limiting what's available. So, we're really working on a lot of features to make the app way more exciting, for one, right? And that's sort of like, I think Alex mentioned it. I haven't watched that whole interview, so I hope I don't give anything away that he didn't. But like the burning or the crafting or whatever he kind of shared, right? Those things are designed to make the experience more fun, but also give you more to do with the collectibles that you own and that kind of potential. But personally, from a personal note, and having sat through a bear market before, and I know Crypto Rain, you've kind of been here before, like the next 12 months is going to be pretty rough, right? It doesn't, like, obviously our community is very strong. We're here for each other and for the product, but it doesn't take that much to look outside and see that regulation is coming. There's a lot of fear in the markets. There's a lot of FUD in the markets. Bear markets are tough, right? They are really, really tough to make it through. So, I think overall the advice I would give people is to make sure you're getting outside, spending time with your family, taking time away from the screen, doing things you enjoy, stressing a little less about your collectibles and investments. And I mean, fundamentally, this app was meant to be fun. It wasn't meant to be, it's not, a get rich quick scheme, right? It's meant to be something you enjoy doing in the first place. So, I hope people really understand that and take it as it is. But yeah, look, I can't give you more features than that, right? And to the point earlier about sandbagging and all of that, like, guys, I've learned this lesson too many times. Getting too excited, trying to say, this and this and this is coming, or we're thinking about this, and then the timelines change or the development plan changes or anything like that, right? So we really do want to be under promising and over delivering, and that may manifest in silence sometimes, right? Because it kind of has to for our own mental health, let alone the health of the community. So yeah, look, that's what we're aiming at. I think that what everyone expects of us, frankly, and that's a fair expectation to have, right? That there will be fun features and things to enjoy.
Awesome, thank you.
So I have you were talking about regulation. We've kind of talked about it here, and I've had some debates with Kyle Wilson, some other VeVe YouTubers and influencers about this NBA Top Shots lawsuit, right? And the judge. Now, all that's happened so far is that NBA Top Shots went out and tried to have a motion to dismiss, right? The judge reviewed the whole case, and then he said, I'm not going to dismiss the motion to dismiss. So it's going to go to court, right? But one of the things that they talked about there was that it was all on the Flow blockchain, and you couldn't move it. There was no other marketplace there when they were looking at the Howey test. And I guess my question is, because there's been concerns and there's always questions about interoperability and being able to take some of our assets and put it on to our MetaMask wallet, right? To cold storage or that self-custody. Is VeVe following that lawsuit or what's going to be happening in the courts there? And how are they talking or looking at interoperability, whether it's from, you've got Sanjay here. What did he say? Yeah, like, hey, like, is a collectible company we all like going to be on Amazon? But like, are there other marketplaces or potentially, right, that we're going to be able to take our VeVe assets to, like that type of interoperability? Can you speak to any of that?
Not yet, to be honest. If we're speaking specifically about the Top Shots case, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not really that across it. Yeah, I think I saw, isn't the main grievance that they were taking revenue from Top Shots to try and grow the token or pump the token or something like that? Is it? Do you know the details?
They gated payout. They gated the payout.
They gated.
Yeah. So I
couldn't cash out.
Yeah, look, you and I can talk offline. I made a case basically comparing the Top Shots to VeVe and the similarities and the things that aren't similar between the two there. But no, it's not necessarily. There was definitely like the derived profits from the efforts of others, right? And then you have NBA Top Shots, tweeting out rocket emojis and stock charts going up and stuff. That was that tie-in there of those type of profits. But okay, if you can't speak to it, I just wanted to. Obviously, the fan base. Some people want interoperability. Maybe they want to list it on something like OpenSea. We've already talked about. I've talked about this on around the Ecomiverse, the importance of royalties and how that had to have been one of the biggest selling points to these IPs is to say, for forever into perpetuity. When you make this asset, whenever it's traded, you're going to make some money off that. But you go to OpenSea, and if OpenSea says, "Oh no, like, hey, no royalties now," like. They're not going to move those assets onto platforms like that, right? So VeVe also has to be selective in that. But I was more concerned about like the self-custody aspect where David, you had kind of touched on it, where he specifically said for your independent artists, there may be a provision where, if somehow VeVe were to go under, then those would be able to be transferred onto a layer one. But all he said was, independent artists, and I felt like that was specifically leaving out some of these larger IPs. So didn't know if you could talk on that or not, but that is definitely on a lot of the community's mind.
Yeah, I'm not privy to the contracts that these guys sign and how those things operate. But as we've kind of always maintained, there is that danger of one, the royalties and people losing their assets, right? And I see it all the time. I still sit in the secure wallet support channel and see where people send tokens and the mistakes that are made just even for people that have been in crypto for a while, right? So that's always been a concern. And to your point, you're absolutely right. The selling point to these companies as a startup that they'd never heard of in an industry that never existed was that they would get a perpetual royalty on these. And to bring this stores, and we kind of got that momentum rolling. So, these companies are always protective of their IP, but they're protective of their profits too, right? They're definitely going to make sure that they are clipping their ticket on these things, as they do already. Outside of that, there's not really much more I can add until we really see how the rest of the ecosystem develops, right? We've seen Blur come out recently, focused more specifically on trading NFTs as opposed to buying and selling on OpenSea. But I don't think they're enforcing royalties, right? And they've forced OpenSea to do the same or something like that. Because purely just from a design of Blur, if you're talking about sweeping floors all in one transaction and arbitrage trading NFTs, well then, it becomes a lot less lucrative if you're paying a royalty on top of every one of those transactions, right? I think the debate's going to go for a while, right? Between creators, I think people are going to eventually have to make their own moral choice as to where they want to transact, if they want the artist of that work to be receiving that royalty, or if they just want to, make a trade and move it off. But we're really just seeing the beginnings of that, right? And I, for one, am happy to see what plays out before we kind of make any move there. But regardless, if and when whichever NFTs of ours become interoperable, the royalties will absolutely factor into that decision.
Well, I appreciate that. And look, to your point, I remember when I first got into crypto, the absolute terror of sending any amount to a new address.
Still happens today. I still feel
I will do test transactions sometimes, which eats me alive, especially when it's on ETH or something, because I'm just like, if I get this wrong, I am screwing myself. And I have a really close buddy of mine that was he's in a VC with me, and in one of those things you're like, okay, here's my wallet address, here's the transaction hash of how much I sent, and he transposed the transaction hash with his wallet address, right? And there wasn't a check, so when the VC, it was all automated, and they just sent it to the wallet address that he had put in there, that first distribution, and it was worth it was like $5,000, that they just sent into nothingness because of that one mistake,
One of the most common ones I see is people sending to the contract address instead of their wallet address too, right? Because you're looking it up, what's the Ecomi address, yada yada, and then expecting that we have control over that. Once your tokens are minted, that's it. If you send them to the contract address, they're gone forever, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of OMI that have been sent to that contract address over the years. A new scam that I've seen recently, people may or may not be aware of, is address poisoning. Have you seen that?
No.
Okay, good to be aware of this one. So say normal practice, you're sending USDC or whatever to an exchange, right? And typically you'll send a test transaction. Make sure you got it right. Copy and paste the address, send the 10, 20, whatever it is. That's sent, and a lot of these scammers are watching those exchange wallets, right? Because a lot of them are identified now. And in between the time of you kind of sending that transaction, waiting for it to show up in your balance on the other side, they'll pepper your wallet with a bunch of convoluted fake transactions, right? Worth like 0.1001 ETH or whatever it happens to be, right? And that transaction actually comes with a vanity address where the start and end will be the same as your wallet address, but the middle is different, right? And there's tools out there where you can generate those addresses pretty easily. Because we're tuned into looking at the start and end of an address, you see the same last 4 or 5 letters and think, oh, yep, that's the wallet address, right? Now, this one really gets people that have been in crypto for a while, right? You might see it in your ledger transactions and you go, yep, there's a transaction, copy and paste the address, send again, right? Or whatever. And it's the same thing. If you've sent it to an address that's not yours, those tokens are gone. So yeah, look it up. Address poisoning. I think MetaMask put out an article about it recently. Ledger seems to have made a recent update to their app where any questionable transaction like that is actually grayed out in your history, so that it's a little bit more obvious. But you've every single crypto cycle there is just a multitude of new scams, right? And the people that come up with these things, if they spent 5 minutes trying to do something legitimate, would be so successful, but clearly they're making enough from scamming people that it justifies their actions. So yeah, it's we all live in fear of sending crypto anywhere, right? Because that's the risk. But do you know about account abstraction? What the Ethereum community is working on at the moment?
Yes, it's ERC 4339. Is that what it is, right?
Yeah, I don't know the numbers, but I know the general premise, right? And it's to get rid of these number strings and all the nonsense that goes with them. Give you a way to back up your accounts with a password and all that kind of stuff. I think it becomes a smart contract wallet instead of a UTXO, whatever the model is. So the tools are getting better. We're all learning from these scams and from the mistakes and figuring out ways to combat them. But I think we're probably 12 months away from that actually being a real implementation.
Yeah. Well, so to anyone who's watching, on my channel, I made a video of common crypto scams that people, especially in Discord, that's where I got scammed. My first scam was in a Discord. And so definitely did a lot of research. So I'll have to look into that contract poisoning and probably put out like another, because I've learned of more scams too. And it is so important in this space, man. There's people are out there to try to make a quick buck, off people, and it's a shame to see. So look, from that standpoint, I get it. It's funny because you'll get the crypto purists and the self-custody purists that and I would say that I'm more along those lines. Like, I've learned it, and I'm going to take ownership for my actions, and I've lost money, and I own that. But I understand. I understand that like there's reputation risk there as well with all of these other IPs. If they're saying, "Hey, I sent my, Walt, and it's VeVe's fault," Disney, there's a lot of concerns with that you have to deal with when you're this brand new IP and it's just your company. You can do whatever you want with it. Like, you can be so much more flexible. But at the end of the day, I do hope that at some point down the line that function is available. I love the ability. I would love the ability to have some of my VeVe assets on a cold storage wallet.
Agreed. Yeah, you and me both. And as you say, I'm the same, right? I'm a crypto native, very Web3 purist. Like, I want the same control over my assets, but that's because I'm willing to take responsibility for them, right? If I mess up, it's on me, right? And I'm okay with that sort of risk there. But by the same notion, I mean, that's why the reward in crypto, at least now and in the early days, is so great, right? You have to put up with this kind of stuff. Yeah. Hey, Ryan, you awake over there, mate? I
know you haven't said anything, Rain, in a while. I was gonna reach out, and I was like, "Is this some sort of like weird cycle, like feed?" And
rest, mate.
Yeah, I'm not feeling 100% myself today. I don't know what it is.
Monday.
Yeah, the Monday. Now, I went to the gym and I was feeling sick, and so I came home. I felt better later. Went back, came home, but been feeling off.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I don't know.
Oh, that's right, man. I hope you get better soon.
Yeah.
Perfect. How many times?
And I knew Dr. Stuff was hosting, and so I wanted to be here, even though I'm not feeling 100% myself.
Yeah, you guys are legends. Look, this is my first live stream, and to have all of you legends on here, and then Reese to pop up, I just hello. Well, it was funny because I saw down here. This is my first time doing a live stream, and so the controls are a little bit different, right, than when you're jumping on StreamYard as a guest. And I don't know how long you were waiting in the waiting room or the green room, man.
Not that long.
Okay, because all of a sudden I just like saw it because it only shows like this little sliver, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, Reese is here. How long has Reese been here? And so I'm glad you weren't waiting very long, and I didn't miss you. Oh, look at this. We got Lori. Hey, shout out to Lori. She does so much. I love her Queen's Court and the guests that she's had on, and like all of the questions she's asked all of her guests. I've learned a lot from her stream. So shout out to her and all that she does. And shout out to everyone so far on listening into this. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. I just heard someone describe Laurie as the Oprah of the VeVe fam recently. So that's pretty good. Wasn't bad at all. Hey, Dan, can I just ask the Star Wars poster behind you? Did you have that pre-VeVe or?
No, that's something I got after the fact. Someone commented that there was nothing really there here on my previous videos, and it's actually kind of interesting. But it's VeVe that really got me into to thinking about what do I actually like.
Okay.
It's like, I like Star Wars. I like these posters. Some of these posters are good. Some people don't like posters, but this particular one I enjoy quite a bit.
Okay. And do you own the digital? We sold that, right?
Yeah, you guys did. No, I don't have it digitally. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Curious.
Back to like OMI utility and the OUP program. I know like the web app is instrumental, right, in getting a lot of those features out. Is there kind of like a priority in terms of what rolls out afterwards? Not necessarily in terms of timelines, but like, like I'm wondering like when the raffle system would drop out, or like if that's predicated on the whole, wallet and what needs to be in place before we get something like raffle tickets.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we need to update the current MCP article that's out there, right? Because it's not really a raffle system as such anymore. It's you kind of get additional waitlist spots rather than a ticket system, right? It's kind of similar to what we designed in the OUP. So the first stage is obviously actually getting your points and levels and ranks and seeing those things change. And then once we get the other priorities, OMI to NFT, I think the next focus for me or for us is going to be buying OMI in the web app. Because that's, once you can actually use it and we're exposing the token to a lot of users who aren't aware of it or maybe just didn't want to go down the crypto rabbit hole, right? Because we all know buying OMI is not that easy at the moment. So I think that's probably the next crucial piece of infrastructure, and will obviously supplement the adoption of the OMI to NFT side of things. And then I would say concurrently with that, actually being able to redeem your MCP points, which would be for the raffle or whatever we call them. So I think that's probably the next sort of list of priorities. And then we build in, plenty of other things you can spend your points on, and whether it's accessories or features in the app or whatever else. We'll release some information about that closer to.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think is going to have such a massive impact is that bronze ticket. We are all degens here, and what I mean by that is like I'll sit there, I'll have gems in my account, and I'll see a comic that's been sitting there and hasn't sold out yet, and I'm like, all right, let's see if I can get that secret rare. Just $7, and I'm like, I got a comment. Yeah, okay, and like so if I'm willing to do that, and risk that, I mean, the likelihood for some of these bigger drops of people being like, what am I willing to purchase in OMI? I'm so excited on that mechanism. Like, well done on that one specifically for me. I think that adds so much utility, like just from it, like not even talking about like what that does to burning the token, but just from the utility of the token, being able to do that on those bigger drops and up your chances. I love that. So mad props. Like, I know that you guys worked so hard on the OUP, and it's a lot. I mean, I think I've reread that thing so many times, and I know that I'm still missing or misunderstanding some of it.
Yeah.
So
to that point, and I've kind of said this, I know the OUP document is complicated because it's a hell of a lot of text, right? To try and explain each component and where the user experience on those features will be easy, right? Like, oh, you have bronze tickets. Do you want to spend them? Or you increase your chances, get some bronze tickets, or whatever the in-app messaging and those kind of things becomes. As a user, right? And this is Mitch's main focus is ensuring that flow is easy and easily understood, right? And easy to access. So when will OMI become buying OMI easier? When it's in the web app, probably.
So about that, can you elaborate? Are you going to have like a third-party service provider that will be the exchange, or how am I going to be able to, like, will I be able to, is it like MoonPay or something like that, where I'll use a credit card and be able to buy the OMI? That's the intention. And it'll just be okay.
Yeah, it'll be some sort of service provider like that, because they effectively need to maintain a liquidity pool, I guess, on layer 1 and layer 2.
Yeah.
And have some sort of, whether they're manually bridging or auto bridging, if that's how they're bringing their own liquidity up to layer 2. And then as you buy tokens, you'd be buying them out of that pool of layer 2 tokens. That would be the play there.
Awesome. I saw another question. Oh, go ahead.
Are exchanges as much of a priority as they were 2 years ago, or has the shifting regulatory landscape, changed that, in terms of getting out there, as quickly as possible or whatever.
Yeah, still absolutely a priority. Yeah. I mean, either way, whether OMI is available in the web app or not, there's plenty of people that will want that token for other purposes, right? Whether even depending on where you are in the ecosystem, layer 1 or layer 2, like maybe you really love playing Tengoku, and that's where you want to use your OMI tokens, right? So you want to make sure that there's a way to access them there. Maybe you want to go and use them on the Epico Regal market. That's layer 1. The Feature Arena, right? I think Brock is rebuilding that kind of stuff. There's a lot of other use cases and utilities that will be external to VeVe, and exchanges are crucial to that adoption as well.
What's the thought behind creating, your own unique tokenomics for that new game coming out? That on the surface, that doesn't seem to be compatible to what VeVe is doing. But do you have any thoughts on that, or if you intend to do that more in the future as well with other projects?
Yeah, I mean, effectively, we're trying to find a play and earn model that is sustainable, right? That isn't just like one big pool of tokens, and once that's run out, everybody leaves the game behind, right? Now, our focus is much more on the game being fun to play and people enjoying the game than it is like, hey, come here and make money, right? And I think that because of that, and the system design, we have a bit of a ratioed cash out system, so that there has to be money coming in before money can come out, right? You have to have that sustainable sort of token flow. But yeah, the intention behind that, we're kind of kicking off the Ecomi partner program, I guess, for lack of a better term, and this is what we've always kind of destined the business development fund to go towards, right? To really sort of incubating games or platforms or whatever it happens to be, to increase the use and the adoption and the awareness of the token, and to let us branch into other fields, right? Like VeVe is amazing, and we're going to take over the world and all those things, but it's going to be for a specific audience, right? And people that love this kind of thing. There's no reason why we can't branch further into gaming or wherever else. And the stronger that token adoption and that token velocity and everything becomes, the more incentive other platforms and other games have to actually integrate a token that exists, as opposed to trying to launch and bootstrap their own token, their own liquidity, all those kind of things. It's not, not necessarily bringing these things under the Ecomi umbrella, but we can definitely sort of support and incubate them to expand our reach into the.
So you think of it as the game gets new potential gamers without having to market that much more, and then what does Ecomi get from that? Just people who would want to buy collectibles or add value to the token.
I mean, fundamentally, Ecomi has more people using the token, right? And whether it's just in a different capacity, but then maybe they take it from the game, right? They've grinded out this game, they've earned some OMI. What else can I do with this token? Oh, I can go buy collectibles in VeVe, right? So it's just another conduit, another door, basically, for people to enter our ecosystem or our product ecosystem, and explore more of that, right? And because if you're a gamer right now, you might not care about collectibles, right? It doesn't have that appeal to you, but eventually that incentive might align and you can move across, right? Longer term, I would love, I think we're really thinking that your staking tiers might give you extra perks in some of these games or apps or whatever it happens to be as well, right? Because depending on the way we build that system, you can just verify people's wallets and what they're owning, if it's like a tier badge or whatever it happens to be, and offer the same sort of perks or incentives elsewhere for the same reason, right? Then we're encouraging people to go from VeVe and staking in VeVe to go and check out this game or check out this other part of the ecosystem.
Oh, that's
so Reese,
awesome.
Would that mean most of those games would be based on IMX?
Not necessarily. I think Tengoku is going to launch on layer 1 to begin, although gas fees are already climbing and we're in a bit of a bear market. So, I think they might look to go to IMX. I mean, I'll be honest, it'd be easier for us if they did, because then people don't have to bridge their tokens. But no, there's no sort of guarantee that they'll build on any particular chain or ecosystem.
Okay. That's interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
So I think that, Hello K had talked a little bit about this. Web3 gaming is being steamrolled with IMX's tooling. He asked to create an SDK package for OMI tokenomics integration for games. So is that kind of along the lines of what you're talking about right here, right?
Yeah, somewhat. I don't think it will be an SDK necessarily, at least at the moment, right? We're going to be pretty hands-on with it in the way that we operate and these systems. And Kay probably knows more about this stuff than I do, especially the SDK side of things. But I think at the moment, if we're going to support a game or another app or some third-party application, then we want to have a hand in the way that it is designed or operates, at least until we have that system, proven. Right? Once we have that, then yeah, maybe the opportunity arises where we say, oh, if you want to use our token, just download this thing and here's a system. But I don't know. I'd prefer to be a bit more hands-on with it at the moment, just to not oversee these things, but to be able to contribute, I suppose, and to make sure that our own branding isn't being bastardized somewhere, I guess, for lack of better term.
So Reese, is it that the gaming developers get the audience from Ecomi or from VeVe? Like, what's the gain on their side?
Yep. Oh, geez, my battery might die. Yeah, exactly right. The incentive for other projects to use a token that's already established is that they sorry guys, hang on, give me 1 second. We're gonna have to get a new charger. Yeah. They get a community, right? They get our community. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's see.
A lot of questions.
I know. I love this. I love that he's come on, and I feel like we've been able to ask a lot. What's that, Rain? What's that, Rain?
When he comes back, I've got a question for him.
Okay.
Just be aware my laptop may die at some point.
Okay. Well, I've only got about 10 more minutes, and then I've got to close it down. So.
Cool.
So I have a question for you. So we did an episode with Randy a couple weeks back, and we were talking about how this idea like really blew up in his mind. There was a movie recently. The girl was playing with some Barbie dolls, and this kid goes to make fun of her. You're playing with Barbie dolls. She said, I am not playing with Barbie dolls, or I'm not playing dress up. I'm accessorizing. And, VeVe and the 3D modeling app and NFTs is prime for accessorizing, right? Has Ecomi talked about going that direction at all, where you could have like models and accessorizing?
Yeah, I actually think it might be in the app description on the app stores, because it was definitely part of our early design roadmap. Now, obviously, things have kind of diverged since then, but yeah, I agree. There's a huge market opportunity, a market potential there. I guess it goes along the same lines as the social flex. It's not just kind of having this thing. Being able to customize a particular item or whatever it is a huge thing. Now, I think the first iteration we're going to see of that is more your avatar, right? Your avatar in the VeVeverse that's going to give you potential there to create, whatever look and shape and feel you want. But longer term, I think it would be an opportunity missed if we didn't sort of go down the bejazzled line.
So with a lot of the IP that you're able to get, and then you're able to give them some kind of royalties perpetually, right? So that you have a strong offering to be able to get brands that people would want for accessorizing.
Correct. And look, this is just conjecture and speculation, but something like crafting, right? Like maybe eventually that's how you end up accessorizing, like whether it's an extra cape or a helmet or whatever. You might need to combine these 10 things into one, and then you can add that to your collectible or whatever it happens to be. Now, at the moment, the composable NFT standard is 1155, right? And I think that's live on layer 1. I don't think IMX supports that part yet. So there are some sort of technological limitations there from the NFT side, in terms of actually being able to do that and combine the tokens into however that technology works. So just adding that as a side note, something to be aware of when it comes to timelines.
That would mean you would have multiple like blockchain like NFTs that are just temporarily put together.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, I guess that's the idea, right? I know on layer 1, if you have a composable NFT, well, then it might be like your character, your sword, your shield, and you put them together into one, and now they become sort of one big NFT. I don't know if you can then break them down again from that point, or if it's like this becomes the item because it burns the other ones. But that technology is pretty bleeding edge, I suppose.
I saw a really good question here about the VeVeverse. Do you think we're going to have some mini games in there to keep people excited and playing more?
Yeah, look, I think initially the experience is going to be targeted more at social interaction than minigame, right? But I think people will create their own minigames, because now you can invite people into your showroom, or you can see your friends list in your friends space and that kind of thing. But no one's naive to the fact that gamification would help build the experience. So yeah, I think that's what we're kind of we'll aim.
Racetrack.
Well,
Yeah,
so
right. Yeah, the VeVe 500. I'd love to see it, right? And I mean, if we're selling accessories like that, some of the original demos, you'll see like the curbside for the DeLorean time machine, right? Things like that. It's as like the next stage of plinths and bases. I see no reason why we can't sell or provide pieces of roadway or whatever it happens to be to allow people to fully customize their home space, because that's the idea, right? It's meant to be your own personal showroom and showcase.
Just not games with giantesses.
Just not
Yes, I would definitely put a racetrack on my home space if that's possible.
Yeah.
Because
hold on, I've got to ask this question because we're going to be shut down soon. I don't want to get too off track here. But regarding accessories, I noticed that the Lambo does not have the iconic Lambo engine sound. Is that an accessory, or can that be added, or what happened there?
Does it have a sound? Does it have a sound at all?
No, none.
No,
but the Lambo engine, right? Like that sound is iconic. I feel like it's like even trademarked or something like that, right? So, anyways, yeah, I was wondering. I was not that any of them actually have engine sounds. I think, but when I think of the Lambo,
some of it. I think Knight Rider has sounds.
Yeah, Knight Rider does have. That's true.
The Triumph, the motorbike, has sound, I think, but you can't.
See, okay, there you go. Right, so
you can't control that, right? You can't. I don't think you can drive the Triumph. Whereas, so maybe that's why. Maybe it's in the controllability that you don't have a sound effect if you can drive it around.
Interesting.
That's a
I'd
good
love to see that with the Lambo. I think that would definitely separate it from some of these other Lambo drops that they've done. So, anyways, I had to get that in. And then Only Child had talked about accessories. I remember back in the day, David, you giving the example of having Superman with the golden cape.
I was actually about to give that example, and I was like,
But how epic! I remember thinking how epic that would be, right? I would absolutely do that. So.
Yeah, exactly right.
Can you imagine if you got an artist like Todd McFarlane or Jim Lee or something to do like a Batman with being able to change like different capes for that one and different cowls and everything, and how cool that would be.
Yeah, and to that same point, I think you can do this with cowls now. You have an AR filter, right? You put it on your face, or something, like if you can do that with Spider-Man's capes or any of those things, like right, it's all about connecting that physical and digital, at least for the next 5 to 10 years, right? As people make that transition. I think all of those things are amazing opportunities. It's not to say that we're going to go down that line, but the capabilities and the potential are definitely there once we're kind of in a proper cadence of rolling out these features.
So here's another question that I thought was interesting. Will we ever get sales data? I know obviously like that's one thing with trading and purchasing, understanding what something, when I look at like comics that are dropping, I look at it in real life, right? And I'm saying, okay, what did it sell? What did it sell at? I go collect, right? And I can see that sales data. Because it's tough sometimes to understand when I'm looking at floors as, oh, did this really sell, or did someone just delist? Or so is that something that we can expect on IMX with the metadata? Is that sales data, or what's going on with that?
Yeah, look, that was the intention. I haven't actually heard anything since we rolled out the first metadata link there. But I think some of that information is available or will be available through the API package that we kind of, eventually going to put together. So that stuff's available like on VMate and things like that. It may remain gated to platforms like that, which you can obviously now access with your OMI tokens and that kind of thing. I don't know. I actually don't know the technical limitations of our link to IMX and what is available there, because we obviously use an in-house transfer system, right? An in-house sort of sales system. But I agree with you. I think it's crucial information for people to have to make those decisions. And it's just another layer, right? It's another layer for people to enjoy and to really understand what it is they're buying, or if it's something they want, if they're just speculating on it or anything like that. So I see it happening, but it's not in the priority list right now.
Okay. We got 1 minute left. I don't know if anyone else here has any last burning question for Mr. Riz. And hey, you know, one thing I haven't said, and I always do this beforehand, but shout out to everyone who's on this panel. If you don't follow them already on YouTube or on Twitter, please go to their channels and subscribe. There's a description on all the Ecomiverses that have done so far, each episode on these different channels. A lot of these people do a lot of research, right, to help educate the community. Shout out to you, Riz, for coming on. Such an unexpected welcome surprise. Really appreciate the time and answering what I feel are some of the tough questions that people haven't asked before, and really going down and answering as much as you could there. But so yeah, please like and subscribe to my channel as well if you haven't. I'm definitely working on putting out more content on a more regular basis. But so yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys. I always appreciate the invite and always appreciate the insights and feedback that we get from you. You know, we're always watching, regardless of whether we're contributing or participating. So it goes a long way, and obviously goes a long way to providing this information to the fam as well. So it's always very much appreciated.
Great to talk to you, Riz.
Yeah, and with that, we're going to sign off. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Have a good week.
Thanks.